Hello everybody, welcome into my latest live vlog. Today is Thursday, the 7th of February, 2019. Thanks for joining me. Come on in, come on in. Take a seat. There's lots of seats. There's an infinity of seats. Or stand. Join us. Today, gonna talk about some stuff. Okay, so hello to everybody that's in the chat room already. Got some eager folks ready to start. I love that. So let's give them all a shout out because, hey, they deserve it. Mark Baguette. I'm gonna have to learn how to pronounce Mark's last name. Joe and Victor Torres, Tech Cowboy, and Alhaz Tepej, as well as Frederick Ludholm, Steve Sabaha, Victor Torres, PDG, Andrew Johnson, Abdul Kamba, William Lynn, Thomas Carter Roosevelt, welcome, Andrew Johnson, Steve Cartwright, ZHammer223, Tony Wallow, Dusan Parkler, Chang Chen, Interpret, Dusan Parkler, Harry Baldwin, Peter Brooks, DJ Matrix 2310, Philip Musto. Welcome in, guys. Roger Hall. Roger should be a moderator. Nicholas Beer, Tom Jacobs, Russell Franzen, Amy Husen, Elvis Frazier, Mike Rooney, Harry Baldwin, Jason Smith, Cor Vanderpoort, James Zender, Roger 1152, Polster 69, Richard Wood. Welcome in, everybody, and thank you for joining me today. And I've got a really unique vlog today in that we're going to talk about some stuff that's arrived in the mail. In fact, it just arrived. I've got my Coca-Cola, which is, can't start the podcast or the vlog or the digital broadcast or whatever you want to call it without a little bit of the good old USA sugar. Patrick Grusaw says hello from Syracuse, New York. Tony Vento says hello. John Paul Bacon and Steve Devine are also there. Romby's Ghost and Crow Theory and Natterman and B. Robin. Welcome in, guys. Welcome in. All right, so behind me, I'm not sure whether or not to use last names on this, so I'm just going to use first names unless I hear otherwise. But a gentleman named David said he had an old machine he didn't want anymore, and if I knew anybody that could use it. And I said, yeah, you know, there's this guy editing my videos. He calls himself Crazy Vera, and he's doing a wonderful job. And he's working on like a Pentium D with 2 gigs of RAM. So I know why he's crazy. And he said, well, I'll send it to him. And then he said, well, how about if I send it to you? And I said, yeah, send it to me. Let me go over it, and then I'll send it on to Crazy Vera. And then, well, that happened. Steven Bernstein, Steven, I know, he's contributed a lot. And he also sent me something today which might be worthy of considering putting in here. And it's in this box right here. And it is, let's see, we got 4 sticks of Corsair Dominator Platinum RAM, 3200 speed. This is not cheap stuff. A couple of SATA cables, driver disc, a bridge, and this motherboard with a chip on it. This is an X99 board with quad channel RAM. This is the Asus X99-A USB 3.1 motherboard. And the chip, I don't know if we can read what chip is on there. I'm sure you guys can see that better than I can. And so he sent me the board, the I/O shield, the CPU, and the RAM. So it's going to need a cooler, power supply, storage. I don't think this has any M2 on it. This was probably, oh no, it does. It has a single M2 drive on it, which is good. And the screw and the standoff for the M2 are there. So everything's there that we need. And I don't know what's in this machine, so this will be something to consider Again, this is from Steven Bernstein. You'll see Steven, his name is in blue in the chat. He's been a frequent supportive community member for quite some time, and very lucky to have him part of our community. You included a Go Faster sticker. Look at that. So I'm just going to set this over here for right now so we can focus on this other item that was sent by a gentleman named David. And it looks like we got a couple of contributions in the chat. Let's give a few shots out to those generous folks. We got Tony Wallow contributed $4.99. And Christoph Esch has contributed €2. He says, hi from Germany, love your videos. Thank you, Christoph. All right. Tony also contributed an additional $25 last night to pay for that stupid cable. That's the thing about Thunderbolt. The reason why Thunderbolt has never really taken off is Intel charges a royalty for it. So anytime you want to, put Thunderbolt as an option in a device that you make or on a motherboard, you have to give Intel a chunk of change. With USB, there's no such royalty. There's no such licensing fee. And so you see a lot more USB as a result of that. So because of that, the cables for Thunderbolt are very expensive, $20 to $25 on Amazon. That's Amazon pricing. So anyway, it was nice of Tony, and he's a very generous contributor. Thank you to Tony for that. Yeah, let's see what I got in here. I know the person, David, who sent this, told me what the specs were, but I can't remember anymore because, I've slept since then. So let's take a look and see what we got in here. Ooh, we got a stock Intel cooling fan there that's fairly old school. When they used to make them good. And let's see, what else do we have? We've got a Corsair HX 850 watt modular power supply. Did we get any more power supply cables? He's given us a graphics card. This is a GTX 560 Ti. Oh, there's a note. Carey, sorry for taking so long to ship. We just had a big storm in upstate New York that dropped about 3 feet of snow. Computer probably needs a good leaf blower session. There's a Ziploc bag with some cards and a USB stick. There's a README and an x64 there along with the latest Windows 10, although it's USB 2. The README will explain the OCZ Revo drive. Any questions, shoot me an email. That's from David. Also, the rear fan is broken. It's been so long I forgot it was the fan itself or the cable. The plastic locks for the PCIe cards are junk, so I just use screws. Oh, yeah, there's little plastic. Yeah, that is pretty junky. We're going to need to put some slot covers on there. David, thank you. Thank you very much, David, because we're going to make sure that this computer has a second life and gets to live up to its full potential. Now this here is probably some kind of an add-in card. David must have a cat or a dog. That's okay. We're used to that around here. Let's see, this must be that Revo card he's talking about. Let's take a look at what we got in there. I don't like to do anything fancy or out of the ordinary for regular customers because it can very easily turn into a nightmare for everybody involved. So we try and keep everything as standard as possible. So this is probably something I'm not going to use. And I'm saying that before I'm even looking at it. I don't even know what it is, but I'm telling you right now, I'm probably not going to use it. Once I figure out how these little plastic dealies, I guess you push it in like that. It swings open. That's different. There it is. Yeah, this is an old school SSD drive is what this is. Made by OCZ. You probably have never seen one like that, huh? I can't imagine I will use this in this build. I think it's going to be a nightmare to help a customer remotely that uses this. If you're somebody that's doing stuff yourself and you choose to buy one of these, you can support yourself. But I wouldn't unload this on an unsuspecting customer. It'll do the job, but you do have some consequences that you absorb when you decide to go this route for a solid state drive through the PCI Express slots. So I'm not going to use it. I'm just going to set it aside. What else did he give us here? Let's take a look in the bag. We've got a looks like mini HDMI to HDMI cable. That's probably for the graphics card. It probably has mini HDMI out only, and it does. And so he's very kindly included this little adapter that can plug in. And now we've got a standard HDMI out on that, which is very thoughtful. Thank you for that. What else do we have in here? We've got even an HDMI cable. And this is an HDMI to mini HDMI. These are what I use on my cameras, by the way. All the cameras have the mini HDMIs, and they have to go into regular HDMI capture cards, which are standard HDMI. So that's wonderful, so that you can use either the adapter or that cable, which has the adapter built in. He's given us a power cord and only one additional cable for the power supply, which is too bad. He's given us a Molex to SATA adapter, so I guess if you wanted to use this cable, you could. And then finally, he's given us a Patriot branded USB drive that he says has the README file, and I think drivers required for that Revo add-in card. That's that. This I will just wrap up. Very kind, very generous. So David, thank you so much for sending this along, and this ought to make Crazy Vera sane. It's really nice. You know, the generosity in the community is just blows my mind. It's awesome. You know, somebody had this, they said, I'm not going to use it, I'm never going to use it, it's just sitting around here. If somebody can use it, I'm like, yeah, I know somebody that can use it. And then they went through the expense of shipping it to me. Wonderful. And the same with Stephen Bernstein's like, I'm not going to use these parts. I said, Stephen, man, you should use those parts. They're expensive parts. He goes, yeah, I'm not going to. So since I know that, do you want them? I'm like, well, if you're not going to use them, I'll take them. So I'm not sure what we've got in here. Let's fire it up and see what's in there. We've got 1, 2, 3 sticks of RAM. So we're triple channel on this. It's an Asus Rampage 3 formula, if anybody wants to Google that and look that up. Got some power adapters here. Not sure. Oh, that's for the graphics card. And motherboard power is hooked up. SATA is hooked up. SATA power and data to the DVD. Looks like a DVD reader writer, pretty standard. Took an interesting route with the audio cable, but that works. It's a nice, clean cable management job. It looks like there might be some kind of drive rails required to install a hard drive in here, which sucks. That sucks, because that means now somebody's going to have to go to the Cooler Master website to order these drive rails if they want to put a drive in here. This is why I don't like drive rails. People lose them. They just lose them. Also, they get old. As they get older, they get brittle when they're made of plastic, and they just break. And the only people who make them is the case manufacturer. Drive rails do not generally move from one case manufacturer to another. They're uniquely designed, and if they weren't, they'd sue each other. So welcome to America on that. But that sucks. There's no place for me to install a 2.5-inch drive on here, and there's no adapter that I can use without those drive rails. So that sucks. The back PCI slot covers are all missing. I've got lots of spares. I'm not sure why they were removed. These are another thing that gets lost by the customer if they're ever taken out. I suggest you keep them in the motherboard box, keep it all together. The cable management, as I mentioned, wonderful job on the cable management. It's a nice case. It's in wonderful shape. It looks like it was never used. 4 USB ports, USB 2 ports up front with an external eSATA, which nobody ever uses, by the way. And we've got headphone and microphone standard in the back. We've got 2 USB 3s, Ethernet, another looks like USB and audio. Oh no, this is an on-off button here. 3 more USBs, 2 more USBs. It looks like there's a built-in FireWire, which has got to be obsolete. I've got an optical out, a reset button. So there's a power button and a reset button here on the back built onto the motherboard. 2 more USBs, and then a PS2 port for a keyboard, which nobody uses anymore. So this might be quite a bit old, but let's find out. Let's slap the video card in here and power it up and see what she does. See what's in here. It was packed very well. He did a very good job getting that packed up, and it seemed like it took forever to get here, but those storms have really delayed shipping. Anything coming from the eastern part of the United States is going to be impacted by that, unfortunately. And rats. There it is. Get that lined up better. Yeah, good enough for now. And then a little bit of a tight fit getting into those cables. Grab a flashlight so I can see. And looks like we've got a 4-pin adapter. Is it 4? No, they're both 3s, so 2 3-pins. One goes there. And then the other one will go right beside it. I have to do this the other way around. Plug this one in here first. And then I can plug in this one. Okay. Everything else looks real good in there. And now I can use this little adapter. And you can see you almost have to use the adapter because nothing wider than this will fit in there. So you got to use the right kind of adapter. If the adapter was, had a frame around it like that, you'd never be able to seat it. But yeah, I agree. Those are pretty crappy. It's a horrible design. Okay, so let's get this plugged in. Let's see what's on here. Well, there shouldn't be anything on here because I pulled the drive. I have no intention on using that drive, as I mentioned. So let's plug this in. Then we're going to need a keyboard and a mouse. So we'll use this keyboard and mouse here. And yeah, we'll just try these USB ports up front to see if that's going to be okay. And what else? Probably we'll need to plug in some sort of storage drive in here to test it. So let's see what I can use. I do have some M2 drives laying about. How about we use one of these SSD 6s that I've got. This is a Intel SSD 6 512 gig NVMe drive that basically sells for the same price as a regular SATA. So if you've got a motherboard, will this motherboard support NVMe? That's the question. See, it's a Rampage 3 formula. What do I do with my mouse? This is an X58 chipset, so it's quite old. Let's take a look. So it doesn't look like we're going to be able to boot from NVMe on that, but we can do regular SATA. All right, well, good to know. Good to know. That's when you deal with hardware that's a bit older, you do run into some limitations like this. So I will not use this. I'm sure I have a regular SATA M2 drive laying around. Let's see. Oh, yeah, you know what? I've got a Western Digital Blue. That ought to do the job. A 500 gig Western Digital Blue, M.2, just for you. Bada boom. Look at me and my parts. How dare you stare at my parts. All right. Let's just try it, see what it does. See what it does. Now when I do this, I want to make sure I pull power. I don't want to have any chance of shorting anything out. And hold on a minute, maybe this doesn't have any M.2 socket. I was thinking of the other board, not this board. I think this is before M2 existed, which is probably why he had the Revo in there. I get it, I do get it. Takes me a while sometimes to get it. But that's what we call a kludge. I'm not a fan of kludges, so we're not going to use that. Oh, look, we got a drive bay cover. That's good. So this is going to go back. It'll be used on another project for another day. Third time's the charm. Away. Okay, what can I use? Well, tell you what, just because I just have this old Samsung 120 gig SSD laying about. This is an old Samsung 830 series drive. And what I should be able to do is we will take the power cable that he included. I could probably go on Amazon and buy some power cables for this, because they do appear to be missing. I think I really only need one SATA cable, but I don't know if it might be worth just changing this case out and getting rid of this case. But for what I'm about to do here, let's see, we got one SATA cable and another SATA cable. So he must have had some hard drives plugged into this at some point. So let's plug in the SATA cable. And let's plug in this little adapter. You got to wonder if it's worth just replacing the power supply, throw like an EVGA 700 watt power supply in there versus the cost of the cables to keep something, you know, that's heavier and older and used versus throwing something brand new in it. But let's just give this a shot and see where we're at. So now we've got a SATA drive hooked up, and we're going to need to install Windows 10 on it, and I can see this this SATA cable's plugged in here into this red socket, which I don't know what that means. Why is it red? I would normally not use the red one. Then there's a red SATA cable. Where's that one going? Don't know. And then there's another SATA cable plugged into the DVD drive, and none of those SATA cables appear to be plugged into the motherboard, which would mean I'd have to expose the other side and take a look at the cable management. Maybe we can determine where the other end of these cables are. Presumably they're just disconnected back here somewhere. Let's take a look. Look at that nice cable management job. Just didn't cut off the pigtails, but other than that, that's my only complaint. This also could have been tied up, but that's not necessary, but it would have been nice. And this could have been routed around these cables instead of through them. But I am nitpicking at this point. So the question is, where does this go? Okay, so the two black SATA cables are plugged in, but where's this red SATA cable going? Where is that going? It's a mystery. Get the Scooby van, get the mystery machine. Where's it going? It goes here. It goes up. It goes up, up, up. Oh, that's for the eSATA up here on the front. So that's what that's for, and that's why it's not plugged in. I don't know why anybody would use it, to be quite honest, and that's probably power, I'm gonna guess, for the eSATA. I don't think eSATA carries power. That can't be right. Maybe there's some lights on this case. I don't know, guys. I'm not sure how salvageable this is. Let's just see what we've got, and let's go from there. So before I make any decisions, I want to be as informed as I can be to make the best decision. So let's plug this in here. That's Windows 10 right there. Let's plug power in. That'll go there. And I think I'm done with that flashlight for right now, so that'll go back in the drawer so I know where to find it when I need it next time. And let's turn it on. Switch you over to that capture card. Yeah, he's right. This fan here is not spinning, whatever this is. Not even sure where that's being plugged in at. Oh. The bare wire is exposed. The whole thing's busted off. This whole piece is busted. Where's my wire cutters? So you guys can see what I'm doing. Let's switch over here for a moment. This is what's left of the other end of the fan. So we're not going to use that fan. A lot of things can be physically soldered and repaired, but here in the States, it just costs way more money and time. The value of time is more expensive than just buying a new fan and slapping it in there. You get done in a fraction of the time. There's no worry about it being fixed correctly or happening, something happening as a result of the repair. You just stick a brand new fan on there, you get in, you get out, move on to the next customer. That's what happens when you have a huge population, right? Just trying to help as many people as you can. And you can't do that if you're spending half a day trying to fix a fan. Okay, there's still more connected here. Just lower that, see where this is going. I think I'm going to go ahead and just cut this wire management free, since I'm going to have to get in here and redo this anyway. And yeah, I'm not sure what this is all about. And then I'm going to grab these wire cutters. I'm going to cut the other end of this fan. Just plugged in right there. I see. There we go. That's the culprit. We'll just take that, cut those. There, that can go to the recycler now. We'll put that up here. Yeah, super easy, super cheap to replace that fan. Ain't no thing. Okay. It was really bothering me, so I had to deal with that right away. That could not wait. Okay, so here we have the machine. Let me flip back over and see what the BIOS was saying there. F1 to run setup, sounds good to me. I'm hitting F1. Nothing's happening. Does it mean it doesn't like these USB ports up here? Okay. What do we got? Storage, not detected. That's not good. Should detect it. Advanced power. Suspend. Boot. Boot device priority. First boot device. Oh, wow, it's in IDE mode. Let's go back to storage configuration. Yeah, that'll do it. Put that in AHCI. Oh boy. That's fine. Intel Core i7-970. Wow, this is very old. This is back from around, what'd that say, 2011? Wow. Why is it not detecting? C state should be enabled. I'm not sure why that would be disabled. That's weird. Chipset. Fine with that. Is SATA ports, are they enabled? Certainly don't need the 1394. Okay, that shouldn't be there either. Two different places to select AHCI mode. That's because there's two different SATA controllers on this board. Remember I said one was red? So you can configure them individually as IDE or AHCI or RAID. That's why. Otherwise it could be confusing. LED control, that's so important. Not. ROG Connect, this is all ASUS's nonsense. Let's see. It's fine. Hardware monitor. Temperature monitor. Very good. Fan speed monitor is good. Fan speed control should be enabled. Good. Good, good, good. We'll enable all of that. I don't normally have to make this many changes to a BIOS. However, the older the BIOS is, the older the system is, the more you have to tweak it around to get it up to date with current settings. Let's see what it does now. What I'm trying to do is get it to boot off of this USB stick and acknowledge that we have the SSD plugged in. Yeah, so we're on the Marvel adapter at this point. That's part of the reason. So I don't like that. I'm going to turn this off. And I want to move these two SATA connections down to the black connector, not the red one. So the red one is a Marvel connector, which requires specialty drivers, and I just would rather avoid that and use everything standard as possible since they're all going to run at the same speed. you know, why would I do that to myself? He's got some cable management here that gets right into the way of getting these SATA connectors disconnected. That's really not good. Not a very good case design. He could have run the power connector, well, maybe not. I was going to say maybe up through here. I mean, he clearly spent some time thinking about this, but there are some consequences, some negative consequences to the decisions that he made, which, you know, who cares if he's the only one that's got to work on it? But the minute somebody else has to work on it, so that's what I'm always trying to think about. When I do my cable management and I'm doing my builds, I'm thinking how somebody else, what I can do to make it easier for the next person who has to work on this, whether that's the end user themselves or another tech, or even if it comes back to me, I'm just doing myself a favor at that point. This is nightmarish because you're putting a lot of stress onto the connectors with this big fat motherboard power cable right here, and it's not good. We want to avoid that, especially in shipping. That's something that could snap free just from the stress being placed on it, and over time could cause a broken solder connection where the points are that these adapters solder onto the board. Now clearly this would be easier for me to get to if I pull the graphics card back out, but I'm trying to be lazy. I'm trying to be efficient. That's what I meant to say. I'm trying to be efficient. Okay, we're just going to bring that out for now and unplug the other one. That's a little bit of a trick. Let's run it down here this time. And I think I'm going to leave that one disconnected, and I'm only going to plug in the solid state drive. Down on the bottom connector should be the first one. So I think these were hooked up backwards, but I could be wrong. But that's the way I'm going to do it. And now we'll flip the switch back on and turn the unit back on. And let's see what we get this time. Ah, this is good. I see William Dawson's joined us, and Seth Harris, Gabriel Granados. Welcome in, guys. Good to see ya. Bo Boone says, I've been watching for 4 years now. You've taught me so much. Thank you for teaching me. You should be a moderator. Getting devices ready. What's it booting to? What did it just boot to? I'm confused. What just happened? I put a USB stick in to boot Windows to install, and instead I have booted to a mystery storage device located somewhere on this board. What did that just boot from? That may be the strangest thing I've seen. It's times like this that the internet, and specifically Google, can be your friend. Now I've got the DVD drive disconnected. Always make sure before you ship a computer that your optical drive is empty, because if there's a disk in there, it actually can get jammed in there where the door won't open anymore. So anytime you're even moving a computer, if you're going to bring it over to a friend's house, make sure that there's no disk in the drive. Now, with regards to what we booted to, well, here's a couple things we can do just right off the top of the bat that are super, super easy. One is to look at the stats of the drive itself. So if I go to the yellow folder here, look at this PC. It says there's 120 gig. Oh, that's my drive. Okay, that's the Samsung I did not clear it off. This is why I should be clearing these things off. That's exactly what's happened. So now that I'm happy, that makes sense. Okay. It's all clear now. Once I wipe away the mud, I can see just fine. So I'm going to hold the power button down until the machine shuts itself off. Now that the machine's off, power it back on, and I'm going to press F12. And ideally, that's going to get me a boot menu so I can choose the USB stick. I thought, incorrectly, I thought that this flash SSD drive I had was wiped, and it is obviously not wiped. It still has the previous Windows 10 install on it. It's not letting me in. Okay, that's fine. Let's hit reset. Let's do this again. This time we'll go to the delete button. Looks like it's got 12 gigs of RAM. So it's triple channel X58. That was what it was with X58. So that's all good. Storage configuration, good. Oh, so he did have it plugged in the right place. I've got it plugged into port 2. So port 2 on this Asus board is closest to the bottom of the board. It's usually the other way around. So he had it installed correctly. There's the specifics of the, if you guys want to check and see if there's a new BIOS version, you can do that for me. Look up the Rampage 3 formula board and see if there's a newer BIOS than 0903. I imagine there would be. And let's go to the boot menu and let's change the boot settings configuration. Let's put to let's see. First drive will be this one. There we go. Now I can save and exit. And this time around we should boot off a flash drive and I can begin a Windows 10 install. I mean, that might just be a good clean 10 install on the flash drive, but I don't want to risk it. It only takes a minute to reinstall. Tropos 0903 is the latest. Wow. That's how old that is, huh? Crazy. All right, we should be booting off a flash drive this time. Seems to be hesitating here for some reason. I'm not quite sure what it's doing, but just got to be patient, I suppose. Yeah, flash drive is blinking like crazy, so I'm just gonna let it sit here for a moment. I guess I can remove the stop so it can spin again. Okay. Boss Peter has contributed €2. He says, keep up the live streams. Hey, thank you. Thank you for contributing. Ben Laird says, thank you, Carey, for your tutorials on hardware building. I've learned so much from you, but Windows 10 is a lost cause. Yeah, try explaining that to the 400 million people around the planet that are using it. But hey, whatever. You know, it's frustrating to me when people think they're better than everybody else. It really bothers me. But, you know, you're welcome to have your preferences, but to imply that your preferences are superior to the vast majority, that's a tough pill for me to swallow. But nonetheless, thank you for the compliment. I do appreciate it. But I do think there's a little slight attitude adjustment required here. You have a different preference than the regular ordinary folks, and nothing wrong with that, but it's in no way superior. I just want to be clear on that. It's just different. All right, so we want to go to the install here. We'll go to English, click Next, Install. Let's click I don't have a product key. We'll do Windows 10 Pro, hit Next. Accept the license agreement. Custom install, always a custom install. And we'll delete the current partitions we have. And now Windows will partition and format and install onto that SSD. And if everything works well, then I can just clone it over to a different drive, because that won't be big enough for Crazy Vera, not with my videos. Everybody complaining that Windows 10 is spying on you, we're so blind to the reality of life. You're being spied on by far more through your phone than any computer you will use as far as a desktop or a laptop goes. Google is spying on you far more than Microsoft is. Your internet service provider is spying on you far more than Microsoft is. And second and thirdly, nobody cares what you're doing. You're not a public figure and you're not a celebrity. And you can go do whatever you want. Your information is basically worthless. I don't know why people are so freaked out about it. It's weird to me. It's not to say you shouldn't care about your privacy, but you should be reasonable, in my opinion, that your data really doesn't have any value. It honestly doesn't. And if you actually put a dollar value, I think it's around $12 a year for like Facebook data. It's really not worth much. So to spend a lot of time and effort protecting something that doesn't need to be protected, in my opinion. And furthermore, if you're truly concerned about your privacy, you would not use a computer and you would not own a cell phone. Those people who won't use a computer and won't use a cell phone, when they say they care about privacy, I take them seriously. Anybody who uses these devices and says they care about their privacy, I'm sorry, I find that humorous. It doesn't make any sense. It's like somebody saying, I care about my health as they're shooting up heroin. It just doesn't add up. I'm sorry, guys. I mean, you can continue to believe what you want to believe, but I'm just going to have a hard time taking what you say seriously as you do the exact opposite thing that you claim to be such a promoter of not doing. But that being said, do whatever you want. Do whatever you want. It has no impact on my life whatsoever. Let's see. People have this self-inflated, this inflated sense of self-importance that their private data matters. It doesn't matter. It only matters if you're a politician, if you're a celebrity, if you're a public figure, then your private data matters. Otherwise, your private data is completely inert. It has no value. It really honestly has no value. Nobody cares. It's a painful thing to say, but if you died tomorrow, none of those people would even know you're gone. Those people that are collecting your data won't even know when you're dead. So, just saying. If they were really watching, they would know, but they wouldn't, because they're not really watching. It's just automated processes. It's a real serious schizophrenic mental illness happening, and people seem to think that what they do is important. And it might be important to you, but unless you're a public figure or celebrity or a politician, nobody else thinks it's important except perhaps somebody you're working with directly, and they don't care about your privacy and your data. It's ridiculous. It's like someone telling me how valuable their piece of crap car is. I suppose if you could find somebody willing to buy it, otherwise the value is only in your head. What about identity theft? Identity theft has nothing to do with Windows 10. That has to do with people and corporations not securing their data. So you can do everything right, you know. You can do everything you're supposed to do to safeguard your identity and then have an organization or corporation that you've done business with be hacked and have all your private information with regards to identity theft being taken. And there's nothing you can do about it other than don't anticipate, or I'm sorry, don't do any electronic transactions with any entity. So if you shop at Target and you have a credit card you used and then Target gets compromised, they've got your credit card info. The bad guys have it. Even though you're safe and secure and you did everything right, Target's the one who dropped the ball. You don't even want to be a part of Equifax, and yet you are a part of it. And when Equifax gets hacked and all of the information required to emulate who you are is taken, there's nothing you can do about it. It's out of your hands. I think that's what you really need to accept. No matter what you do, as long as you participate in electronic transactions, then you are going to be potentially involved in identity theft. And it won't matter what your settings on Windows 10 are. It's the strangest, weirdest sense of logic. It's a lack of logic, really. I mean, you might as well wave chicken bones over your head and chant. That's about how much sense it makes. If you think that that can prevent identity theft by changing some settings in Windows 10, well, you're using your smartphone on Google and through your ISP and through your cellular provider. You're living in a fantasy land. You're just choosing to see the world a certain way, but that doesn't make the world that way. That's just totally an attitude. So it booted from the flash drive on the second boot, and it did that because I've instructed the BIOS to do that. But because when the machine does its first boot with Windows 10, I don't need the flash drive installed anymore. Everything it needs to complete is on the drive itself. You know, the world, most corporations run off Microsoft Windows. That's not going to change anytime soon. You may choose to run Windows 10 in your home, or you may choose not to. But if you work in a corporation, you will run what they give you and what they train you to run. And that's what you're going to do. And that's how you get paid, and that's how you pay bills. So if it works for a multi-billion-dollar corporation to use it, it's probably fine for you and your mom. But what do I know? Rob Gurley's contributed $5. It's great to be with you once again. Hey, thank you, Rob. Good to see you, buddy. Okay, so we're getting ready for our first boot as it finishes the Windows 10 install. The machine seems to be running pretty darn quick. It's relatively quiet, although we don't have any fan in here, and it's a little warm right here. This was an expensive motherboard when it came out. You know, this, and triple channel RAM, you know, that was a thing just during the period of the X58 chipset. The chipset prior to this was not triple channel, and any chipset after it, excuse me, is also not triple channel. So it was just uniquely the X58 chipset that did that. And this board has 6 RAM slockets. I guess a RAM slot and a RAM socket, a slocket. Yeah, we're going to call it a slocket. There's 6 of those. We're using 3. There's 3 available. You've got a switch. If you look closely on this Intel cooler, this is a tower cooler, stock from Intel. It's got a blue light on it, and it's got a switch that says Q or P, so quiet or performance. If I crank that over to P, it'll be a bit louder and it'll cool a little bit more. It's just a physical switch. Oop, just stuck my finger in there. Not a good idea. Come on. I'm sorry, will you start again? Thank you. Didn't hurt me, it's fine. Contribution has come in, this time from CCTV user, contributing £2. He says, here's a few quid for the channel, Carey. Well, thank you, CCTV user. CPU fan error, yeah, wouldn't you know? Let's take a look here. F1 to continue. All right. No, it didn't hurt. It's just a little plastic fan. It didn't hurt. It's fine. still giving me a fan error, so I'm going to just power it off entirely. And let's turn it back on. I don't like that it just came back. When I flipped the switch back on, it should have defaulted to off, but let's see what it does. There we go. Somebody's offering me a BIOS for a board that isn't this board. They're saying there's a BIOS for a Rampage 3 Extreme. I don't believe this is the Extreme. I think this is just the Rampage 3 Formula. So you got so when you're working with computers, it's very important that you pay very close attention to the details. ASUS and other manufacturers may have a series of products where the titles and the names are the same, save for one word or one letter. So for example, Gigabyte may have a Z87H, or that's a bad example, an H310 or a B350, and these letters and numbers, they're telling you very critical information. And when you're updating a BIOS, you've got to get it exactly right, or you may brick your motherboard. And one of the ways you know if you're at the right board is look at previous BIOS release versions to make sure that your current BIOS is in the list of previous BIOSes. If you don't see your current BIOS listed as a previous BIOS, you're looking at the wrong board. That's one sure way to know. And they often will have completely different naming conventions just to prevent that type of error from occurring. Jason Collins has contributed £5. He says, hello from Chester in the UK. Not had much sleep since I found this channel. A lot of people say I put them to sleep. So, you know, stick around. Let's see. I got everybody that I contributed. Did I miss any? No, I think I got everybody so far. Very good. Thank you guys for your contributions and support of the channel. I really appreciate it. I know when I ship this out, it's heavy. It's probably going to cost me $80 or $90 to get this shipped out. It's going to Texas, but I just don't know what shape it's going to be in when I do that. This is kind of a deal killer for me, not being able to put a hard drive in here without these rails. I hate cases that take rails, and this is exactly why. I hate power supplies that are modular when it's given to a business or a typical home user that doesn't store them, because this is what happens. This is the state I get these in, and it makes my life miserable because now I either have to replace the power supply or get the cables, and sometimes replacing the power supply is cheaper. Sometimes trying to find these rails is more expensive and too time consuming versus just getting a new case. And it's just silly little stuff like that. You would never have this problem with a Corsair 200R because there's no rails and there's no tools required. You just slap your drive in. There's no place here for 2.5-inch solid state drive. However, when this case came out, this is the CM Storm. They didn't have solid state drives, I don't think, back at that time, or they weren't popular enough yet. Okay, so we want United States. US keyboard, that'll be the next thing. We're going to skip that for now. And what name do I want to put on here? Put Vera. Sounds good. No password. No Cortana. No. We'll turn all this stuff off. Geo Johnson's contributed $5. Hey, Geo, thank you. Gio says, Carey, you're the best. I stayed up last night till 2:30 a.m. watching your videos. I can't get enough. Well, there's over 700 videos, and they're going to be around for a while, so you don't have to watch them all right away. But if you want to binge watch, well, that's all good, brother. Thank you for supporting the channel. I appreciate your enthusiasm, and I appreciate that you're one of the ones who gets it. You get what I'm doing here, and that means the world to me, because there's a lot of people who don't get it. We get people in the chat room sometimes, they've never been here before, they don't understand what's going on, and it all goes right over their head, and then they leave. What are you going to do? But it's very gratifying when you do get viewers that are like, I totally get this. Well, thank you. That's the best compliment. Be Quiet uses individual cages, not Corsairs. Use those most Corsairs use the flexible rails. 200 Rs budget, so it excludes them. Everybody's suggesting the Be Quiet Pure Base 600, but I don't think that has, off the top of my head, I don't think it's got a toolless drive. I think you still have to use screws to tighten this, you know, to put the drives in on the Be Quiet 600, and I think it doesn't have a 5.5 inch or a 5.25 inch bays in the front for optical drives, card readers, and other accessories people like to add, as I recall. Nick says, my boss just gave me Adobe Premiere Elements to edit videos. Nice. Okay, I guess I'm going to need to get an Ethernet cable so I can get some updates on this thing. Let me grab one. This is something else I need to order, another 20 or 25 foot maybe a Cat 7 or Cat 8 cable. This one's getting a little long in the tooth. I'm always folding it up and unfolding it, and it's starting to wear. It's still working, but it's on my to-do list to get it replaced. It's showing its age. Go to Windows Updates and Security, check for updates. CCTV user says, here's £2, here's to 250,000 subs by the end of 2019. Oh, we'll hit 250,000 before summer. Yeah, we'll be at 250,000 by July, I imagine. Hopefully before July. Here's hoping for 300,000 by the end of 2019. Flytech Bass has contributed $5, says, I bought an NZXT 500i white, and when will you have Steve Bass on again? I just talked to Steve yesterday. Steve wants to join in, and I've invited Steve to call in at any time, on any video at any time. He can just call in. Steve likes to set up appointments and things, and it's like, well, I have a hard time knowing what's going to happen from day to day. So it's hard for me to be able to schedule something with Steve like that for the reason Steve wants to join. So absolutely thrilled and flattered that he wants to join, and all he has to do whenever he wants to join, he knows how to reach out to me. And what I'll do is I'll set up my laptop so Steve will just be on the counter and through Skype, so he and I can talk, and you'll be able to see him as I can on the laptop, so it doesn't interfere with this feed here through YouTube. Sharon Idles contributed £5, says, your videos are addictive. Who needs crack when there's Carey? Oh, God, should that be on a t-shirt? Thomas Beckenstowe says, Carey, love your show. Thank you, Thomas. Ben Laird contributed £1. Thank you, Ben. Thomas wants more direct tech support. Yeah, I don't want to make that a staple of the channel, but definitely, you know, something we do about twice a year we'll do. So the idea is sometimes, quite often, the advice I see and read on the internet, as well as what I get on the phone when I talk to technical support, is so bad that the only way that I could offer such terrible tech support is I would have to be drunk. Hence, drunk tech support, where we can offer you the worst advice, which is typically offered by people claiming to be techs who have no business making that claim. Whether it's technical support over the phone or Reddit discussions or forum discussions, I see out of all the technical answers that are provided in general on any given topic, I would say 80% of them are bad, incorrect, potentially dangerous. 80% of the answers offered on the internet for free are just awful. And I think if I'm drunk and somebody asks me tech support questions and I'm intentionally trying to be awful, I still can't be as awful as those people. I'm just not that good at being that awful. So we just try and, if you can't beat them, join them kind of thing. And we'll just do that a couple times a year. Acronis has jumped in. Hey, Acronis, welcome in. If Acronis wanted to, I don't know, have a special discount code for viewers to use to buy Acronis, I would be happy to put that in my show notes. Just saying. Was that subtle? No? Yeah, well. Thanks, Acronis. We love you over here. We're all just looking for bargains. And Brian over at $300 Data Recovery was back at it last night with long live feed of him going through the professional data repair process or data recovery process, which is absolutely fascinating to watch. It is so far different from anything you'll read on the internet from people telling you how to get your data back. It is professionals that do it for a living. They generally don't participate in those discussions. They don't offer any help or advice. They pretty much keep all that information hoarded to themselves. I really appreciate that Brian is bigger than that and shares his knowledge. And you just can't copy what Brian's doing unless you have about $10,000 or $15,000 worth of equipment that he's using. That's on each individual rig that he's using for data recovery. Each one is $10,000 to $15,000, and he's got, 10 or 15 of them. So the fact that he's showing you how to do it isn't giving his business away, but he is giving you a realistic idea of why data recovery costs so much, takes so long, and is so delicate and difficult to do. And it's fascinating to watch it happen, to watch a real professional work. James Duke has contributed $19.99. That's 19 pounds and 99. He says, "Hi, Carey. I repaired a friend's laptop that was stuck in a boot loop since a failed Windows 8 to Windows 10 upgrade. Thanks for encouraging us to at least have a go." Thanks for all the videos. Much appreciated. James, thank you so much for your contribution. And I'd love to send you a case badge if you'd like one. Send me a private email. My email address you can find over at tech-vets.com. You can also send me a message on Facebook. Just let me know who you are and that you contributed. If you'd like a case badge, I need your full mailing address and I'll get one out to you. And thank you for supporting the channel. Anybody who contributes $20 or more, and preferably not through Super Chat, but through the donation link at tech-vets.com, be glad to send you a case badge. Anywhere in the world, they ship anywhere in the world. All right, how are we doing over here on the updates? Still installing, okay. Well, it's doing that. I get to get another one of these bad boys. Time for Coke number 2. I am still waiting on a part before I can start the judge's computer. I am still waiting on a part before I can start another client's computer. And a gentleman calls himself Badura Catalan in the chat has said that he's got a really big time complicated machine he wants to build with me. He's out in Michigan and he wants to drive out and do it, build it on camera with me. So I've not heard from him yet, so we'll see if he follows up. If I donate 40 Canadian dollars, will you include a Coke bottle? No. You know how much money that costs to ship? Who is the judge? Well, it is not ethical for any judge to use the fact that they're a judge in any capacity to use that statement, I'm a judge. It's not an ethical thing to do. And so for that, the judge remains anonymous, but be that as it may, it's a real judge, a real superior court judge. And that's about all I can tell you. LottoOne is confirmed that the latest BIOS version on this motherboard is what is installed. All right, we get to restart. Yeah, the judge is happy with the system I built for him 2 years ago. You can see that video is still up and available to watch. That's the one I built outside. And he's so happy with it. It's been 2 years. He's ready for another one that's even faster. So the parts, almost all the parts are here for that build, save for basically a Samsung what is it, like a 970 512 gig NVMe drive is what we're waiting on. That's what's holding up that build. So while that's being held up, we've got stuff like this to do anyway. So it's not like I don't have anything to do. There's plenty to do. There we go. And we'll go back over to Windows Update. Now, this CPU is no slouch. I think when this CPU was out, you guys can correct me, but I think this was over $1,000 for this CPU when it came out. And by today's standards, it's still a very respectable and quick CPU. My main concern is the motherboard. Sorry, it's not the motherboard, it's this case. The idea that this case requires these rails and this power supply requires additional connectors that are not included sort of has me on the fence on how I want to proceed. If I want to go and try and find rails, I'm sure if I go to eBay or something I can find them. Or if it's just faster and cheaper to get rid of the case, go with something like a $200 or even that spare Silverstone case I've got. It'll be cheaper for me to ship it. And like I say, this eSATA port isn't going to be used. There's no reason for that to be here. It seems like 2 of these USB ports are not working for some reason. I'm not sure what's going on there either. This is a GTX 560 Ti graphics card, which, you know, for basic video editing is fine. I have some decisions to make on this and how I want to proceed. Because quite frankly, if I use the X99 system, and I'm going to use it with a different power supply since I don't have all the cables, and I'm going to use it with a different case, and I was sent some graphics cards that are a bit newer than this, then that means all of this is not going to get used. There won't be a single scrap of this that I can use. I suppose I can move the DVD drive, but I have plenty of extras, so I wouldn't need to rob one from here, because then I'd still have an empty hole in here that would have to be filled with what else but a DVD drive. So I might as well just leave it where it is. That's not to say that this couldn't go to somebody else, perhaps just for regular use, but this may not be ideal for Crazy Vera. We might be able to do, well, I know we can do better than this. But at the time, I didn't have anything better than this. But the motherboard, the X99 board from Stephen Bernstein arrived today, and who knew that was coming, right? So, yeah, at this point, this might be better off being used as a giveaway to disabled vet or something like that, rather than the original plan to pass it on to Crazy Vera. The more I think about it, it may be a lot more work than I was anticipating getting into, and for the end result not being as good as some of the other parts I've got now. So I'm gonna figure that out. Seem to be losing viewers rapidly. Something's happening. It only shows 52 people are watching. Something's not right here. What is going on? Well, you should be around 600 people watching. So where did everybody go? It's very strange. Okay, it says we're up to date. Let's check the device manager. Let's go to the control panel. Yeah, I've never seen this few people watching live. There's something's got to be broken. Something's going on. Very strange. Anyway, I still have work to do regardless, so they can watch the video after it's done. Let's go under System, Advanced. Let's turn off Auto Restart. Oops, did I just hit cancel? Nope, I got it right. Good. And let's check that device manager, make sure we don't have any errors here. Yeah, that looks happy. Everything looks happy. Let's grab the utilities disk. Let's see what kind of performance numbers we're getting out of this SATA drive on this old machine. Let's take a look here. Justin says it switches between 36 to 367 people watching live. It keeps flipping back and forth. I can't believe that it's 27 viewers. That can't be right. So the read speed of just 278.8 is probably about right for this old solid state drive. Again, this is an old Samsung 830. And you know, I don't know if these black SATA controllers are not SATA 2 versus SATA 3. And maybe the David, the person who owned this, maybe he was using those red ports because they're SATA 6G SATA, which is SATA 3. I don't know. Don't know. But we'll go ahead and let that run. Yeah, it looks like YouTube's having some kind of an issue. Let's see if there's more than 31 people. Give me a shout out. Let's see if we have more than 31 shouts out. If you're watching, just type something in the chat room. Just type hello or something, and let's see how many people we have to say hello. Let's see if it's more than 31. Well, we've already passed 31, and we're still going strong here. It's definitely more than 32 people. Wonderful. Thank you for the shouts out, guys. That makes me feel a little better. And this test is almost completed. Bob Wilson says it shows 182 people. Even 182 is low. We shouldn't be seeing less than 300, and we should be right around 600. So that's very interesting. Okay, almost on the final test. So these numbers, while they do appear to be low compared to the standards we're accustomed to, are actually quite good when you consider the age of the equipment that we're working with here. And if I bring up CPU-Z, which I'll do just as soon as this last test is on, we can take a look at the specifications individually of the components in the machine. So let's do that now. Let's see what we're working with. So it's an Intel Core i7-970 Gulftown. It's a socket 1366. And it'll run at 3.2 gigahertz. Main board is an Asus Rampage 3 formula. We're running 0903, which is the latest version of the BIOS right now, dated from September of 2011. Memory is DDR3 RAM, and if we look at the specifics of the RAM, you can see that each stick is 4 gigs. It's made by Patriot, and it's a 3200 speed memory if we enable that in the BIOS. For graphics, it's a GTX 560 Ti. And yeah, what else you want to know? I'm rolling around in my head on what I can do to make this go faster. If it's still fixed in my brain that this is going a crazy Vera, but I'm really having some second thoughts on that whole thing. So I need to take a different approach, I think. Let's see. Close this out. And I don't want the people button on the taskbar. Oops. Winston Ang-Lew's contributed $2 Canadian. Says Happy Lunar New Year. Thank you, Winston. Put a Go Faster sticker on it. Yeah. Apparently this is activated, so whoever owned this computer, their Windows 10 is registered and tied to this motherboard. So that's why when I said I didn't have a product key, Windows activated anyway, because Microsoft servers, their activation servers, recognize this hardware. So apparently it had Windows 10 Pro on it in the past, and that's why it self-activated. That's interesting. And good to know. That hibernation file off and free that valuable SSD space up. Okay. And I can remove the flash drive. Oh, you know what? I want to put VLC on here. Let's just do that real quick. One of the things that I do after I install VLC is to make sure it's the default application for playing all movies and music. So the way I do that is just go to the gear icon to settings here and go to apps, and on the left side choose default apps, and then right here for music I want to select VLC player. And for movies and TV, I select VLC player. And for people who say that the link to TechVets to when you select my name for email, that doesn't work, that's because you did not select your email application properly or at all in Windows 10, and that's why that link or any other like it will never work for you. And that's how you fix it. Looks good. Everything looks good. So I'm going to go ahead and disconnect. Let's see, I want to just turn this off. So dismiss that. Dismiss that. So everything looks happy there. And then let's eject. Yeah, that Marvel controller even appears separately. Interesting. So anyway, let's get that flash drive ejected off of there. Very good. Okay. That's about all I can do with this for today, so I'm going to go ahead and shut this down. But you can see it runs pretty quick. Just may not be an ideal video editing solution, but still a good machine. Certainly better than what Crazy Vera is using now, but I think we can do even better than that with some other stuff I've got laying around. So let me switch back over to the main camera here and see what I can do. If we put this here. We can put one of these back. Hopefully I can put it back. Let's see, is it going to close? It doesn't want to close. Another problem with this case. It's frustrating. All right, so that's about all I can do with that for today. Like I said, I don't really have any plans on using this SSD card. Let's move that over. The flash drive I'll put over here. Guess I'll leave the panels off of it for now since I'm not done. To put this. It smells like cigarettes. That's another problem this case has. I didn't really get a good couldn't smell it before, but now, as I'm picking it up and holding it below my nose, it's got a very strong smell of cigarettes. I'm leaning more and more on just getting rid of that case. Still, very generous of that person and very thoughtful of David to send it. I don't certainly want to, I don't want to seem like I don't appreciate it. I do. I wish it was a little bit more, but what are you gonna do? I wish it was a little more complete, is what I mean to say. I wish it was a little more complete. Okay. Let's look at what Steven sent, which we have here. So, let's get this out of the box. Sure why he put this in a Ziploc bag. He's also got the RAM in a Ziploc bag, which provides no ESD protection at all, but, you know, thought was there. Looking for some socket numbers on here. Oh, there they are. All right, this is ASUS, so the question is, do they want us to start with A1 or do they want us to start with A2? Gonna have to look that up and see. Super nice RAM. Let's take a look at what the instructions say for this board, which is, what I say this was, an ASUS X99-A USB 3.1 board. This should pull up. Yep, there it is. Let's pull up the documentation. So we'll look under support. And documents, user's manual, German, French, Chinese, English, there it is. Let's download the English version. And let's scroll through here to RAM. Here it is. For 4 modules, it wants us to use A1, B1, D1, and C1. Very good. That's the way I would do it. And that's, me and ASUS typically don't come to the same conclusions, so that feels good. So that means it wants me to use the gray sockets. All right, so there's the board with the RAM. Gonna have to get a cooling solution on here. I can put an M2 drive in here. Will this support NVMe? Let me pull the manual up and take a look. Madi EOL has contributed $2. Hey, Madi, thank you for that. Let's take a look. Storage. Supports 8 SATA 6 gigabit ports, that's better. 4 of the SATA controller ports are gray from the main controller, or controller 1, and 4 of the SATA ports are black from the second controller, so it's got 2 hard drive controllers on it. Due to chipset behavior, the SATA 6, 7, 8, and 9 and 10 ports do not support Intel Rapid Storage, including RAID. That's fine, we don't care. What about M2? one M2x4 socket 3 with vertical M key design, supporting sockets size 2242, 2260, 2280, and 22110, which is good. That's all of them. M2x4. I think what they mean there is PCIe by 4, I think. I think that's what they mean. So let me grab an Intel 660p again and get that installed. So this is an Intel, what they call an SSD 6. It's a 512 gig NVMe drive that uses QLC-based flash RAM, flash NAND memory. So it is about twice the speed of SATA and about half or 1/3 the speed of the highest speed NVMe. But this is NVMe. It's just using a technology that's cheaper to make and makes the NVMe drives more affordable, while at the same time doubling the performance of SATA, but without giving you the full performance that NVMe is capable of, which is about 35 gigabits per second, if I'm not mistaken. Screwdriver. There is a big difference, believe me, between wanting to go faster and wanting to be the fastest. Huge difference in price between those two things you want to accomplish. So this is a very affordable way of increasing performance without necessarily breaking any records, okay? We're definitely not going to break records. Unless the record we're measuring is how much money we spent, in which case we could be breaking some records. Perfect. So now I still got to figure out a heat sink solution here. Let's see. Let me grab a power supply. Power supply. Okay, that's only 450 watts. I need something a little bit more than that. 600 watts will be perfect. All right, so I got a 600 watt power supply here. It's just a cheap EVGA 600 watt power supply. It's fine for what we're doing here. And let's see, what else? What else? Wow, there are a lot of SATA ports. There are a lot of SATA ports on that board. Holy smokes. Got to figure out a heat sink, some kind of cooling solution for this. Let's see, I got lots to choose from. What do I want to use? Decisions. You know what? I know exactly what to use. Back at my inventory, got a Hyper 212 Evo. It's got its name all over this build. See what chip is on here. This is an Intel Core i7 6950X. It's 3 gigahertz. It's an i7 6950X. It's an Intel i7 6950X. Alright, so installing these on the Socket 2011s is so much easier, so much easier. It should amount to, I think, just using the standoffs. This will be a bit different from what you normally see me do, because the standoffs I normally use have the longer thread, and I always put the shorter ones away because I don't build too many Socket 2011s. There's not too many people that actually can justify spending that amount of money. And the CPU doesn't need the back plate because the socket already has a back plate as part of the motherboard design. So we literally just put the standoffs down into the factory installed CPU. Socket has everything that we need. Now, because this is used hardware, I don't know its status. I don't want to go through the trouble of mounting all of these things into a case if it's not going to work. So I'm just going to fire it up here just to see that it's in a working order. That's good. And I guess I'm gonna just leave everything else in there. I'm gonna get some rubbing alcohol and clean the top of that CPU surface off just to make sure that it's free of any contaminants so our thermal compound will work as optimally as possible. So cleaning the CPU, anytime you change thermal material or you're working on something where you're going to replace thermal material or add thermal material for the first time, you want to use as pure of alcohol as you can get. Rubbing alcohol will work. Sometimes there's different rubbing alcohols with different alcohol volumes or strengths, and so make sure you get the strongest one if you have a choice. If you don't have a choice, what you've got will work. This is denatured alcohol, and it's pretty pure, and all I'm doing is rubbing the surface of the heat spreader, the top of the CPU, to make sure it's free of any contamination, and that includes oils from being handled from the skin. And I don't have to dry it off because this is such pure alcohol, it just evaporates very quickly, which is why you never want to leave the top off the bottle. It'll just evaporate out of there in time. And it was very clean, which is a good start. So let me just move this stuff aside because I'm done with that for the moment. And I need a rubber glove. That's what I need now. What video am I watching that this guy needs a rubber glove? Well, you'll see. Winston has contributed again, $5 Canadian. He says, "You're the best." Hey, thank you, Winston. Winston may recognize that case in the background over there. Winston's the one that sent that to me. I just want to tell you, thank you for sending me the case. And by the way, I hate that case. I hate it. All right. But thank you for sending it. But I hate it. All right, let's get the thermal compound. I was going to use some other thermal compound, but we'll just use this. Make sure the CPU surface is dry, and we'll just spread that on there. There's a lot of people out there with mental illness that seem to think it matters how you put your thermal compound on, and you know what? I can't help those people, but I can help you. And what I do, and after being in business for nearly 30 years, if you want to insist I don't know what I'm talking about, even though you don't have a business that you've sustained for 30 years, far be it from me to tell you to listen to me. But I take this thermal compound and I finger paint. And I spread this thermal compound across the entire heat spreader so I can't see through it, just as though I were painting it with the thermal material, as if the thermal material were paint. And if it feels like it needs a little bit more, I give it a little bit more. I just eyeball it to what looks good. I don't want to put too much on there, or I will cause the thermal material to not work as effectively. And if I put too little on, it also won't work as effectively. If I had to choose between too little and too much, I'd say, going a little bit too much is okay, and going a little too little is okay. So it's not going to be perfect. It's not an airtight system. It's never intended to be an airtight system. Air bubbles are going to get into it. People talk about air bubbles. It's not airtight. It's the stupidest argument I've ever heard. Anyway, and it has no real impact on performance, how you apply thermal compound. But if it makes you feel better to have ritualized your thermal application process, then don't let me get in your way. You go ahead and whatever makes you feel good. You do whatever you want. But since I have to support this computer and I'm the one whose reputation is on the line, you'll forgive me if I won't listen to some strangers on the internet, and I prefer to allow my 30 years of experience to guide me. And if that offends you, I just don't know what else to say. So here we've got the thermal compound is applied, and then I've got this mounting mechanism here, and where it bends inward is where it's going to go around the heat pipes. So if it goes around the heat pipes like this, then when I go to close this, these are bending away instead of bending towards the heat pipes. If I turn it and close it, now these are bending towards the heat pipes, and that's the way we want it in. It's got a small nub in there that's going to go in to the recessed hole in this platform here. And here we go, just like that. And I'm going to have to take this fan off of here because the fan is going to block my ability to put those screws, tighten those screws down. So I'm just going to quickly remove the fan. And I want this to go on blowing air out through the back, so it's going to face, it can go on this way, or I can spin it 180 and go the other way, which actually is the way I prefer because the word Cooler Master then will be written in this direction. And I'm going to gently set this on top. Wow, doesn't quite cover the entire CPU, but it's good enough. The CPU has little ridges that come out the side that this doesn't cover. But that's okay. You don't have to worry about that. And these screws are in the wrong position for this socket. I just realized that now. The screws in the little adapter here have 3 positions, and in the instructions, I'm sure it'll tell me which position I want. If it's AMD, if it's Intel. This doesn't show me. Ah, here it is. So socket 2011 is going to go all the way to the edge closest, the hole closest to the edge. Wish I would have done that before I got started, because these are all, well, that one looks like it's in the right place. This one is not. They're pretty easy to move. They have a little spring and you lift up on them. That one looks good. That one looks good now. And then this one. Let's try that. I just want to get the screw started. I don't want to tighten it down. I also want to make sure that this bracket has that little hole in the center. And I want to go to an opposite corner, and I just want to get it started. I'm not worried about the heatsink spinning on me at this point. That's fine. No worries there. Not yet. Once the screw is seated properly, I can move this back and make sure that this is again sitting, that the peg is sitting in that recessed hole correctly. Boy, times like this I wish I had a Mugen 5 right now. I'd already been done. But hey, it's not a race. Let's remember that. This is not a race. And people who watch races don't gain a lot of education from watching a race. And we're here to teach. There we go. There we go. Now let me just double check. Make sure that that looks recessed properly, seated properly. And now I'm just going to start tightening down opposite corners. very good. Everything seems like it should be. Putting these third-party heat sinks on these Socket 2011 coolers is just so much easier, as you can tell, because I don't have to deal with all these extra parts. All that's just for other socket types or adding another fan onto the other side if we wanted to do that. I'm looking to make sure that the heatsink is centered well over the CPU, and it is. Even this back plate we don't use on 2011, as I've already mentioned. And these are used for another fan, which we're not going to add. So now I can put this fan back on, which will go on right like so. See, we got some RAM clearance issue here, but we're going to be moving in away from that, so that shouldn't be any problem. I would like to bring this fan down a bit, though. So I think I'm going to take this RAM out just for a moment. Put it on right there instead. Very good. That's our CPU fan header right there. And then I can put the RAM back in now. Perfect. So now to test fire this, I just need to throw a video card and power supply on there. And I need a power switch. Let me go grab a power switch. Well, this is a true community build because this graphics card was sent to me by a viewer. This came from Jonathan. So Jonathan sent me a pair of GeForce GTX 960s, and he didn't want them anymore. And I said, yeah. And I was actually thinking of Crazy Vera when he sent them. So this is exactly what it's going to get used for. This will be a great graphics card for editing. And I like that he kept the boxes and everything. Look at that, I got the poster in there. That's somebody who really is organized. Not too many people keep all that. Even the original driver disc, which is completely worthless. But how nice is that? Just to have the original packing. Just this piece is all you need to keep. And then when you put that into a box to ship it, you know it's going to arrive okay. But he even kept the little PCIe protector piece that I throw away. He even kept that. Look at that. How awesome. It made it really nice for the next owner that you did that. It looks like he even left plastic on it. Maybe not. I'm going to leave it alone. All right, let's plug it in right here. Perfect. Power Power needs to go. Time for my glasses again. Let's see. Power needs to go. Right here. It's the power switch. Very good. HDMI out on here. It's display port. Ah, there's HDMI right there. Let's plug an HDMI cable into that. And let's give it some power. How about that? So we got the 24-pin power adapter right here. Plug that on. And then we need an 8-pin CPU power connector. Uh-oh. This only, oh, there it is. Yeah, we're good. Okay, and then I need power for the GPU, which is going to be an 8-pin, which we have plenty of right here. I'll just use the N connector. Perfect. I need a keyboard and mouse on here, so let me grab my dongle and plug that in back here. Very good. And finally, I need let's see. Hello? 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 Well, that was worth calling me for. And let's see what else. Oh, Steve Bass says he is watching, but he doesn't have time to join us today. And let us stop those interruptions. Okay. We got the video plugged in. We've got power. Got the keyboard and mouse set up. I think, are we ready for a test fire? I think we are. I got to plug power into the power supply. So make sure this power supply is in the off position. Ooh, feeling popular today. Hello? Let's see. try something else here, guys. Let me just make a setting adjustment so this won't bother us anymore. There we go. Now we're good. Now we're good. Okay, so we're ready for our first test fire, and cooler is on. I'm gonna blow all the air out that way. That looks good. Video card is installed. Let's make sure it's fully seated in there. Because we have it out of the case, it's pushing down on the graphics adapter. So if we just move this up a little bit towards the edge of the table, it can hang off the side so it can stay fully seated like that. And I can even move the power supply up here too. And then these are the rest of the power supply cables that we're not using. And here we go. Are you ready? Are you ready? Let's go to the other input here. And didn't turn on because I haven't got the switch on the power supply on. You paying attention? Here we go. It's a good start. Fans are spinning. Lights are lighting. See if we get any video. Any day now. Oh, fans are quieting down. It suggests it's initiating the power on self-test or post. So I expect to see some video. Fans have shut off on the graphics card, which means it's initialized. Here we go. Show me some video. Be patient. We've got codes going through the LED here. See how long that took? See, that's why you've got to be patient. Those very first boots can take a while for everything to initialize. So right now it shows we're running BIOS version 3902. I'm wondering if there's a newer BIOS for this board than 3902. Let me take a quick look. BIOS. 3902 is the latest, released in April of 2018. It actually shows 3902 as a beta BIOS, which I'm not a real fan of installing a beta BIOS, but I don't want to take it off, so we'll leave it there. So I'm going to shut the machine back down, and then I'm going to plug in my Windows 10 installation media. You see I use this a lot. We'll plug it into one of the USB 3 ports so that things happen quickly. Fire this bad boy back up. This seems like a better editing rig for Crazy Vera, don't you think? System halted. Let's see what we get. Let's go in the BIOS real quick and take a look at some of the settings. I've always assumed that the settings have been left alone, but since this comes from another user instead of from the factory, I shouldn't make that assumption. Looks like the A1 RAM is not being recognized. That's not good. So I want to reseat that RAM before I go any further. So I'm going to turn the machine back off, and I'm going to cut power to the power supply. A1 is, let's see, on this board, is this module here. Let's reseat that. Flip the switch back on back here, and then we can flip this one back on. Let's go back in the BIOS. Who knows? Maybe it wasn't seated, maybe it's a bad socket, maybe it's a bad RAM module. I don't know at this point yet. Let's go back in the BIOS. No, it is just not seeing that RAM module. Might have a bad module. Those should have a lifetime warranty on them though, so I will look into that a little later. I'm gonna leave it as is for right now just to move along with this live video. We're gonna go into advanced mode. Where's my advanced mode? Cancel that. Give me advanced mode. And let's take a look at what we got in here. That's fine. Yeah, all that looks good. Yep. Fast boot, yep. Yeah, everything looks perfect. So that's good. Save changes and reset. Yeah, I'm not sure if I got a bad memory module or a bad socket there, but like I said, I'm not going to worry about it just yet. Let's see if we can get Windows 10 installed, which it may not. If there's an error in the RAM, it may prevent Windows 10 from installing correctly. But we do know we've got the latest BIOS, even though it is a beta. There's nothing to do there. And then what I can do is swap RAM modules just to see if it's the module or the socket. It's probably the module. If it's the socket, the board may be out of warranty, and if that's the case, we could probably shift it over to use A2, B2. Ideally, that's not the best configuration, but you know, if it works, then we'll do what we have to do to make it work. So we will revisit that. All right, good. So I can do this. Let's go to, come on, mouse. There it is. Next, install. Don't have a product key. Windows 10 Pro. Accept the license agreement. Custom. Perfect. Next. And this install should happen relatively quickly. It looks like Marty contributed again. Hey, thank you, Marty. And Alistair Collins contributed £2. Thank you guys for the contributions in support of the channel. Winston Anglu also contributed again. 1, 2, 3 times. Thank you, Winston. CCTV user is asking Madi if he likes his PC. I built a computer for Madi what was that, 2 weeks ago. Kevin Sears contributed $4.99. Hey, thank you, Kevin. Seth, yes, if you you need to talk to me before you send me anything, because it may not be stuff I want. So, yeah, please check with me first. You can use the email address over at tech-vets.com. If you click on my name, that will get you to my email address if you don't already have it. Kevin, thank you for contributing to the channel. Appreciate that very much. Kevin should be a moderator. There you go, Kevin. Peter Brooks contributed £1.99. He says, for a sticker on Crazy Vera's PC. Really? Crazy Vera may not want a sticker on his PC. We could throw one in the box and he can decide what to do with it. How about that? Okay, now we're starting our first boot off of the internal Intel 660p solid state drive, which it should boot from, and continue the Windows 10 install and complete it. Carey, can I send my old laptop? I'd prefer you didn't. I'd have to know the make and model of the laptop. Most laptops, once they're 3 or 4 years old, they're done. They're not good for passing on to other people. You'd be better off, donating that to preferably a nonprofit organization local to your area. The cost of shipping that, between you shipping it to me and then me shipping it to somebody else, will probably be more than the value of the laptop. But again, it depends how old it is. I'm making an assumption you've got a machine that's probably 6 years or older. And like I say, once laptops hit about 3, they're fairly useless after that point for most people. But I'm making an assumption here. I'll have to know the make and model of it to determine if the cost of shipping is more than what the value of the laptop is. They have bad batteries. Batteries go bad after 3 years. The batteries are about $100 a pop. And then, of course, they're limited on memory and on storage capacity when they're that old. And they just often don't work well or reliably. Edie Salt has contributed $5, says, I love your channel. Hey, thank you, Edie. Moderator status for you, my friend. Here we go, here we go. One more boot up. It's an HP DV6 1030 US. So the DV6 is actually were part of a big class action lawsuit because they were made so poorly. I'm not a fan of HP, and this is a prime example of why. One of the worst, most troublesome laptops ever made by any company in the history of laptops is the DV6 line. You can Google that to learn more about it. Now, specifically the 1030 US that you have, that came out, let's see, what year was that out? 16-inch Core 2 Duo, 4 gigs of RAM. It's just too old. I mean, that is old. You're looking at a machine that had Windows Vista on it when it was sold new, and that would have been probably, I'm trying to look for some idea of when people were buying these, right around 2009. So your laptop is about 10 years old, and it's not reusable. As far as I'm concerned, it's only valid for parts, donor parts. Thank you for the offer. It's just far too old. People don't like to throw things away when they work, but in the case of technology, it's very dangerous to keep older, obsolete technology around because they're very easily exploited by hackers. They just don't have the resources necessary to run a modern operating system without being extraordinarily painfully slow. And then, like I say, the batteries aren't going to be good anymore. So again, thank you for the offer, but I would find somewhere local to contribute it locally. Could be a church maybe, or Goodwill, something. Just too old. Okay, region settings, US. Keyboard is US. No secondary keyboard layout. We'll skip that for now. Okay, we're on the final setup stage of Windows 10. You know, when these video card fans aren't turning like they are now, the machine is dead quiet. Dead quiet. I don't think my power supply can breathe. I've got it sitting on the Lazy Susan with the fan facing down. Probably should turn that on its side so my fan can breathe on the bottom of that power supply. I was unknowingly suffocating it. There it is. Now let me plug it into the network. Take that flash drive out of there. That's the Windows 10 flash drive. We're done with that. And let's hit Windows Update and grab those updates. Mark Kowalski has contributed $4.99. Hey, Mark, thank you. Let's make sure you're a moderator as well. It's grabbing a lot of stuff, guys. That's why these Xeon chips are not recommended for gaming. You have to install a lot of extra stuff, and it can cause all kinds of frustrations in gaming. Buy the right tool for the right job, but it should do very good as a video editor. Tadver Ahmed has contributed £2. Thank you for that. And $5 comes in from L Pope. Thanks, you guys. Thanks for supporting the channel. I386 contributed $5. Thank you. Well, these are all pending install, which means it's already, whatever they're part of, they're part of a bigger package that it's already grabbed. So these are all pending install, which is good. And this is installing now the NVIDIA display driver. And there's the display driver. Everything just got smaller. Because the graphics resolution just increased now that the driver allowed it to do so. So we're just watching that area right there. The Cronus is taking off. Well, always good to see you. Thanks you guys for stopping in and visiting with us. Always a pleasure having you here. These install errors are occurring because it probably installed them already in the background. That's fine. Nothing to worry about. All right, so now we're up to the cumulative update, installing now. And then after that, we should be ready for our first restart, and we'll go back and check for more updates after that. So like I say, the install errors, don't even give those a second thought. Again, it probably just already installed those in the background. During all the time it was spending downloading the video driver and whatnot, it was probably already grabbing from Windows Update in the background automatically. That's what Windows 10 does. Past Me has contributed €10. Thank you, Past Me. Thanks for supporting the channel. Almost done with that install. Still at 73%. It's moving. It's getting there. Just waiting on this cumulative update to finish installing. It is a big update. It does take a little bit. It's really stuck on that. Times like this, like normally when I do Windows updates, I wouldn't stand here and stare at it. I would go off and do something else. I'd even think of going out to dinner. I mean, it'll finish probably by the time I get to the restaurant, but the computer's the most patient thing in the world. It will wait for you to get back, and it'll just sit there waiting patiently for you to click the restart button, so you don't have to sit there and stare at it. So this build is made entirely possible through numerous contributions from numerous viewers. We've got different parts from different people, everything from the motherboard and CPU, from Steven, graphics card from, who did I say the graphics card was from? That came from, that's the other build. The graphics cards came from Jonathan. And then that whole tower that I had that was sent by David, but I think I will use that for something else. I think Crazy Vera, this is more Crazy Vera right here. And I'm thinking of slapping it in either to the windowed Silverstone case that I have laying around, or grabbing a 200R. I don't know if Crazy Vera has a preference. This update shouldn't be taking this long. But it is, so I just need to be patient. I should find a little LED to plug in just so I can see the hard drive activity. I'm sure I've got one back here. You know, I always forget that I have this, but this is a really cool device for just this purpose. If you find yourself working on systems out on a bench a lot, this has a power button and a reset button and USB ports and audio ports, and it's all external. And you can run it, it's got this proprietary connector that plugs in to a piece like this that you could have on your bench. And then that way you can just plug this in. It's got a pin missing, so it only goes in one way. And then you can have full access to everything a case would give you, right? Power LED, hard drive LED, reset switch, power switch, microphone input, audio output, and USB 2 all through these connectors right here. These are like $12 on Amazon. Very nerdy. Normal end users wouldn't have something like this, but if you find you work on a lot of systems outside of their case, it's very handy. Let's just plug in the hard drive LED. Which is not lighting up. Make sure I'm on the right header. Let's take a quick look here. I thought that was the hard drive LED, but I could be wrong. No, it is the hard drive LED, but it's not. I'm getting nothing out of it. Unless the polarity's backwards. Nope. I'm wondering if this thing is somehow locked. It shouldn't be taking this long. A system this fast with this much power should have already been done. But it's not locked up. Interesting. I'm going to choose to restart it. You should never restart in the middle of an update, but my patience is just growing too thin. And I want to plug this. I'm going to use this instead. Let's get rid of this. And let's go hard drive LED right there. And then the power switch. Right there. Oh, hard drive LED blinked there. We got one blink out of it. Keep an eye on that. Hook up the power LED. Give me something to do. Hey, power LED lit up. This is reset switch. I can put the reset on there. Why not? Just put that right there. You can see that's all lit up. Right, and the hard drive LED is just right there, and it will blink on and off. When the hard drive reads or writes, that's what it's supposed to do. Marty's contributed $2. Hey, Marty, thank you for continuing to support the channel. And I think I'm going to force this thing off. It's really annoying me now. It's a clean install, so I'm not worried about it. I'll just hold the power button down until it shuts off. And then let's fire it back up again. See what it does. And doing that while you're in the middle of an update is a good way to corrupt your operating system, so not for the faint of heart. It could be an issue with that bad RAM module. Absolutely, that could be causing some of this grief. I just wanted to make sure the board worked, and that if it had any issues that I resolve them before I go through the trouble of mounting it into a case. Interesting that it went right into the BIOS instead of booting. Very strange. Let's get out of that. Bad RAM can cause all kinds of bizarre problems. However, this RAM module is just not showing up at all, so it really shouldn't impact the system. It would be worse if it said it was installed and it was corrupting everything as we were working. Those are tough problems to chase down. This is a good scenario when a RAM module doesn't appear, because that's very easy to replicate that, swap RAM modules, and then determine if it's the module or the socket very quickly. That's a much better boot up time. And let's go back to Windows Update. There we go. My hard drive LED is blinking like crazy now, like it's supposed to. While I'm waiting, I can put some of this other equipment away. Red Dragon is contributed $2. Hey, thank you, Red Dragon. And the install completed successfully this time. Let's restart. Madi has contributed again, $10. Hey, Madi, thank you so much. He says, thank you for good work, sir. Well, very kind of you to say that. And again, your support means the world to me. Thank you for supporting the channel. Thank you for being a customer. Okay, back to Windows Update. No activation on Windows because all that's shaded out. So that's one way you can tell if Windows is activated. So apparently there was no activation previously, and that's something that Windows Update has installed. I'm not worried about that. Waiting. There we go. I'm running into issues where Windows Update is already updating and I'm forcing it to update and it's getting itself. This is a different problem now. Now it's immediately giving up. It should come back and say we're good, but it keeps trying to install something it can't, which suggests to me that it's doing it in the background. So it's nothing to worry about. Let's take a little closer look at this RAM issue now that I've got Windows 10 installed. I feel pretty good about the machine. Is very promising with regards to qualifying for the needs of Crazy Vera. So what I want to do is I'm going to cut power to the power supply because I don't want to work on pulling RAM modules in or out with the power supply having juice running through it, even though the machine's off. There's always a little bit of power running through the board. You can even see LEDs on this board are still lit up even though it's got no power. It's now the LEDs have gone off. It's taken that long for the capacitors on the board to drain the existing power they had. So this is socket A1 right here towards me, and I'm going to pull this memory module out and I'm going to move it and trade places with this other memory module. So now this module is going to go into B1. And this one's going to go into A1. And we'll see if A1 is still not available or if suddenly B1 becomes not available. In a perfect world, B1 will not be available. That tells me it's the RAM with a lifetime warranty. I can create an RMA, get that sent in and replaced. That's the best solution that I can hope for. That's the best problem I can hope for. If it's a socket on the board, things aren't so nice. So let's flip the switch back on the power supply. And let's fire this bad boy back up again. And bring the input over to there. And let's go and hit the delete button. Take a look in the BIOS. That's the quickest way to tell. Donnie Seegers contributed $2. He says, "You're a good person. Thank you for giving your time." Hey, Donnie, thank you for supporting the channel. Ooh, that's pretty bad. We're not even getting a boot up. I think it's that RAM module. So given, just give it a few seconds here. It should have done something by now. Well, it's doing it. It's working on it. Is it going to come back on? It just shut itself off. One more time. We're stuck on an error code 6F is what the board is saying. These higher end boards, will give you diagnostic codes for come in handy for situations like this. We know the last thing we changed is we moved that RAM module. So I'm going to shut this down and I'm going to pull the RAM module entirely, which was now sitting in B2. So I'll go ahead and pull that module up. And so we've got 3 RAM modules installed, which is not a proper configuration, but let's just see what it does. Oh, much faster already. Diagnostic codes are flying. That's good. Skipping through numerous tests, moving on to the next one. Very good. Here we go. Should see something on the screen here shortly. Here we go. I'm going to try and go into the BIOS and take a look at memory status. Should see the 3 modules. It sees A1, C1, but now it doesn't see D1, and that makes sense because it's not designed to see it's designed to see memory in pairs. So A1 and B1 would be our ideal. So let's just hold the power button in. Let's hit the switch on the power supply. And I'm going to remove the socket of memory here. Wait a minute. A1 and B1 is fine. Let me take out this one on this side. Because I think I have to look at the documentation. If we're only running 2 modules, which ones do they want us to use? Not that we have to, but let's see what they advise. For 2 modules, obviously you're not going to take advantage of quad channel. B1 and D1 are what they want me to use. Doesn't even want me to use A1. So there's B1 and D1. There we go. B1 and D1. I need to just double check that. B1 is the second RAM module from the CPU, and D1 is the second RAM module from the CPU on the other side. So I gotta move this. Right there. That should be right. Yeah. Perfect. Flip the switch back on. Turn the unit back on. Here we go. Go back into the BIOS. Make sure it sees both memory modules in B1 and D1. And that says D1, but it doesn't see B1. That's interesting. Okay. It's being finicky. Shut it back off. Let's turn this off. Let's try that. See if it likes that any better. Back in the BIOS. Gonna show me 2 RAM modules? What do you say? No, it is not liking B1 at all. Ooh, well, this just got interesting. So it's time to do a little bit more investigation. it's possible that the module plugged into D1 is creating this problem. So we're going to pull D1 out altogether. And I'm going to try this bad module. No, you know what? Let me try this module here. Very good. Fire it up again. Okay, let's see what we get this time around. Oh, I just realized I've plugged into the wrong socket here. So B1 shows up and D1 doesn't. Isn't that interesting? All right, we're making some progress, folks. We're making some progress. Let me just shut this back off. And I just realized I plugged this one into the wrong socket here. That was my bad. So B1 recognizes, which is good. All right, let's try this. All right, we feel lucky. Well, it just sees the socket, the RAM in B1. It is not seeing the other module. So let me shut this back off one more time. Let's pop this module out. Let's make sure the power is drained. Pop this module out of here. I'm going to try this module that I thought was bad, and let's put it in B2. Or I'm sorry, this is D2. Looks good. Try that out. Tony Wallows contributed $3.99. Hey, Tony, thank you. Thank you for supporting the channel. Thanks for all you do, Tony. Yep, we're still seeing RAM in socket B1. Wait, I'm confused. How can that be B1? Is that right? Yes, that is B1. That is correct. It goes A1, A2, B1, B2, C1, C2, D1, D2. Sorry, I take it back. It goes A1, A2, B1, B2, and then it goes D1, D2, and C1, C2. So we are in B1, and D1, which is what I thought it told me to put them in. Let me just double check that. Yeah, it wants them in B1 and D1, and it sees the one in B1 and won't see the one in D1. Interesting. Very interesting. And D1, like if you only had one memory module at all, then D1 is the one they'd want to use. D1 is the one over here closest to the gray socket closest to the CPU fan. So we could try each RAM module individually just to see what's going on here. So let me cut the power to this and do just that. When you're dealing with multiple RAM modules, and it can be a guessing game as to which is good and which is bad, we might be dealing with a bad socket here, and we could be chasing our tail over a bad socket. So let's fire this up and see if it recognizes the RAM module. In D1. It's a good start. It obviously wouldn't have gone this far if it didn't see the module. So it is seeing a module in D1. Very good. So now let me shut it back down. And then let's take that module out and replace it with a different one. And I will move it so that I know I've tested it. And we'll just do this one by one. It's not rocket science, folks. It's pretty easy stuff. We're just going through a process of elimination. It is a little time consuming. It requires patience, but it requires most of all critical thinking and logic. And the answer will be presented to you without any expensive tools, without any expensive education, and without any expensive service person coming over and misdiagnosing. Most of the time, stuff like this is completely misdiagnosed by places like Best Buy and stuff like that. They just simply don't have the experience to diagnose properly. Now, I know for a fact that this module and that module both worked correctly. So this is going to come up and it's going to show it sees the module in D1, and it does. That looks great. I want to make sure XMP is disabled here just for now until we get this running. Oh, it is disabled. All right, good. Which is good. Let me shut this back off. So this module right here, this was working in D1, so I'm going to place it into B1 on this side. And that should work. We know for a fact the RAM module is good because it worked in D1. Last time we did this, it saw the RAM in B1, but wouldn't see the one in D1 anymore. Could this be related to the beta BIOS? It's possible. Could there be an incompatibility with the RAM? That's possible too. So we just handle this one step at a time. If these modules come up, if either one of them is missing, we know for a fact both modules work. So let's see what the results of this are. And then of course we can switch over to a different brand of RAM, just slap a pair of memory in it, just to see what happens. Let's see. We're going to see 2 or we're going to see 1? And if so, which one? It shows us both. Very good. So we are seeing B1 and D1 correctly. Those are both 8 gigs apiece at 16 gigs of RAM. You know what? That's plenty fast, to be honest. And we can turn XMP on if we want to now. And let's do a save and exit on this. Anyway, so that's more or less the diagnostic procedure. Just the way that is right now is good enough for video editing. Obviously, it would be beneficial to have all 4 sticks of RAM in quad channel mode for a little better performance, but as it is right now is a heck of a lot better than what Crazy Bear is using. And I feel confident that I can put this in a case now and get it properly seated and, you know, secured. I think it's going to work fine. So I think that's going to wrap it up for today's stream, since everything else I've got to do is pretty basic stuff, right? Getting it mounted into the case. I'm going to check the other 2 RAM modules. If either of those are bad, I'll have to reach out to Corsair. They usually want all 4 back, and they'll send you, you know, if you bought a kit of 4 and one's bad, they don't want to just send you 1. They want to send you a whole new kit. Boot up time is pretty good. Let's take a quick look at, let's see, my utilities. Let's see. Let's run Crystal Dismark, and let's grab Prime 95. And the hardware monitor software. Oh yeah, those are the numbers I like to see. Run around the 1800 range, which is good. I'm going to stop this test. I want to move on to Prime 95. Let's get that fired up. Let's run it. Hit all those cores at 100%. And then while that's happening, let's bring up the temperature sensor and let's see how well it's going to handle these temps. Here we go. Keep an eye on these temps for 10 minutes, and then we're going to wrap up the stream. So in these 10 minutes that remains, if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer whatever questions you may have. Let's go ahead and run this test all the way now. We'll do everything at the same time, generate as much heat as possible. I'm fairly certain that Hyper 212's going to cool this chip without a problem. We'll see. If we breach 90 degrees, you know, if we get above 85, I'll be a little worried. But I don't think we're going to break that. But we'll give it 10 minutes. We'll see where we're at. Now, obviously, with the CPU being hammered at 100%, that's affecting the throughput of the data to the SSD, which is typical and normal, and everything's fine. Again, we're not really testing for performance right now. We're trying to make the computer work very, very hard and generate as much heat as possible. I haven't heard back from Eli yet, but I'm sure I will. He reached out to me, so I'm sure he'll respond when he has time. Temps are looking really good. We're not even breaking 60 degrees centigrade. Not yet. It's been going 3 minutes. I'm going to give it a full 10 minutes. That'll be 6 o'clock my time, and I got to wrap it up anyway. So get the wrong date and time set on here too. I could address that. That's better. Temps are looking good. I think that this Hyper 212 Evo is often underestimated. It's a great value. I wish it was easier to install, although I got to be honest, on a Socket 2011, it is pretty easy to install. These GTX 970s, or sorry, 960, looks like it's in great shape. It's running perfectly. So a shout out and thank you to the gentleman that sent that. Brandon Stevens has contributed $2. He says, good job as always, have a Coke on me. Hey, thank you, Brandon. I will. Thanks for supporting the channel. And we are just about done here with this test. Like I say, these numbers will be a lot higher on the solid state test. It's just that I'm hammering 100% of all the cores on the CPU, which I believe is, I think this is 10 cores with 10 hyper-threaded. So you're looking at 20 cores. Which should make editing a whole different world for Crazy Vera. It shouldn't even be like, it should be amazing, the difference. Just stunningly amazing. Look at how nice and cool that the CPU is running. Isn't that great? I mean, it's clocked out there, 3.5, maxed out 100% all the way down the board. Love it. It's running really, really well. Really, really well. Yeah, it's perfect. Never underestimate those Hyper 212 Evos, I'm telling you. All right, guys, that's going to wrap it up. Thank you guys so much for watching. I know we've got 4 minutes left on this test, but it's not going to change in 4 minutes. You know, we're just now breaching 60 degrees Celsius. There's no way we're going to even hit 80 at this point. I'll let it continue to run for the normal 15 minutes, but I can tell you right now, it's looking solid, absolutely solid. So very pleased with this. I got to resolve this RAM issue, but I'm not going to worry about that right now. I'm going to focus tonight on getting this into a case. I've got a couple of 200Rs laying around. I've got that Silverstone case laying around. So that's not going to be a problem. Not sure if I'll keep the 600 watt EVGA or if I'll switch it for something else. Out of curiosity, just to look and see which power it's drawing right now from the wall, it looks like it's drawing 225 watts is all it's drawing at this time. So with all the cores at 100%, we're drawing 225 watts. If we push the video card hard, we might add another 200 onto that or so, I would estimate. Again, I can do all that testing later tonight just to be sure. 600 should be plenty. And I think we're good to go. So let me switch over here to the main camera. Here I am. So shouts out to Donnie Seeger, Gary Wall, Tony Wallow, Brandon Stevens, Matty Yoel, Red Dragon, Past Me, I-386, L Pope, Tanver Ahmed, Mark Kowalski, Edie Salt, Peter Brooks, Kevin Sears, Alistair Collins, Winston Ang Lu, Joe, James Duke, Ben Laird, Sharon Idle, CCTV user, Flytech Bass, Geo Johnson, Brad Henderson, Jason Collins, Rob Gurley, Boss Peter, Christoph Esch. Thank you guys so much for showing your support and contributing to the channel. To the folks who have sent in the motherboard, the computer, David, thank you to David. Thank you to Jonathan on the graphics cards, and thank you to Stephen Bernstein, for this X99 board and RAM. So, you know, this is all making more videos possible, with more editors involved, more content for you guys to enjoy. And thank you guys for watching, for asking the questions and participating in the chat, and tuning in today. I really appreciate it. That's going to wrap it up for me. Remember, if you liked the video, be sure and hit that thumbs up button to let me know you want to see more videos like this. And of course, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and then tap that bell. So you got little lines around that bell. That'll send you email notifications anytime I go live or new video content is posted. So if you want that, that's how you get it. And that's going to wrap it up. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you all again very, very soon. Until then, bye for now.